Hello, welcome back to Insurance Tomorrow, brought to you by Allianz. I'm Georgie Frost. The biggest UK event on insurance brokers' calendars is here. Thousands of industry professionals are gearing up for BIBA's 2026 conference. The global turbulence we've seen over the past 12 months shows no sign of easing. So what are brokers focusing on now, and how can they prepare for what's ahead? Well, with me today is Phuong Ly, Commercial Managing Director at Allianz UK, and Julie Comer, BIBA's Head of Compliance. Two experts who will help us examine the industry's direction of travel for the year ahead and navigate the implications for brokers. Last year, Insurance Tomorrow was joined by BIBA Chief Executive Graham Trudgill, who joins us now virtually. Graham, welcome. Graham, could you explain the conference's title, Time 2? What's behind that, and what are the key themes?
The theme for last year's BIBA conference was a new era because it had been 25 years into this century. We had a new government. In fact, 40% of the world had new governments. And so this year, it's time to get on with it. So it's time to reform some of the regulation that we have here in the UK. It's time to look at using artificial intelligence properly. We've talked about it for a long time, but how do we harness that and take that forward? It's time to do what we call total retail signposting, a new commitment we have with the Association of British Insurers to help far more people access the insurance that they need. And I think it's time to improve service, so brokers and insurers working together to seek better outcomes there. So for us, the Time 2 theme works for everything.
What are you seeing in the industry right now, and what does that mean for brokers for the year ahead?
I think market conditions are highly competitive at the moment, particularly in a soft market as brokers work with insurers to get clients as much cover as possible. They perhaps can get more cover for their money at the moment they could previously. Also, the conditions are really friendly towards new innovation. So we've seen new innovations in the cyber sector, for example, allowing smaller clients to get protections in case their major client stops using them, stops making orders. We've seen that Jaguar Land Rover example. So that's a new innovation as well, which I think is particularly helpful. Lots of opportunity there right now. Also with insurer service, if you wind back 3 years, the net promoter score across the sector was about -20, which is not as good as it could be. So BIBA's worked really closely with so many insurers to take the feedback from our members and talk about where can the e-trade be improved? How can we improve the claims process here? Lots of good ideas. That net promoter score across the industry has gone up now with a 44-point swing to +24. So great improvements in the conditions around service as well. And I think as we go forward, we want to utilize artificial intelligence as much as possible to make even better improvements in those conditions and that practical everyday approach from insurance brokers and insurers.
And Graham, how can brokers be more economically resilient?
Look, for the government, they keep talking about fixing the foundations, having a resilient economy. And that's why the theme for our manifesto, which is our agenda for the whole year, is economic resilience. So that's what our clients need. That's what insurance brokers offer. So it's more vital now than ever before that we are making clients more resilient to cyber attack, to flooding from the many named storms that we've seen in recent years, from the unsettled geopolitical situation that we find ourselves in. So from our perspective, brokers are here to work with their insurer partners to give their clients that economic resilience that should something happen to them, whatever that may be, then they have the insurance to step in and put them back into the position that they were in before that claim occurred, put them in alternative accommodation, get them new machinery, whatever it takes. And I think also, it's important that you look at insurer security. You look at your partners. Obviously, Allianz have very good security. So we want to make sure members have tools from BIBA to check. So we have the Standard & Poor's facility. We have the litmus analysis, which can even give some guidance on the use of unrated insurers. So I think very much we look at broker resilience as well as the resilience of the wider economy. Like, and I run a trade association, which means we're here to help brokers trade, and resilience is clearly a key part of that.
Graham Trudgill, thank you so much for your time. Julie Phuong, welcome. Phuong, to you first. We've just heard Graham's forecast there about the future and the year ahead. How does that resonate with what you're seeing in the market right now?
Yeah, I think Graham really hit the nail on the head there on all the key themes that we're kind of seeing in the market at the moment. The market is intensely competitive. Competitors are trying very hard to grow their business, and rightly so, because we've had years of really good margin. And an important factor that you did call out is that clients and brokers are taking the opportunity to try to introduce coverages again that may have been removed through the softer market. So I think that's definitely what we're seeing in the market. But notwithstanding all the challenges always comes with opportunities, and I think everyone in the industry, both brokering and insurers, are looking at ways to get more productive and get ways to provide better services to customers in these current conditions.
Julie, is that resonating with you? How are you seeing brokers preparing for the year ahead?
It's an interesting question. Obviously, there's an awful lot going on in the UK and the world at the moment as well. And it feels like they almost need to preempt what is happening to then prepare for any sort of impact as well. But we are seeing, as Phuong said, insurers, trying to innovate, trying to ensure that there is cover there for any sort of unusual risks that might start occurring as well.
You talk about preempting. So hard to do in this environment, isn't it?
It is.
What about the increasing complexity of commercial risk, Julie? How can brokers spend their time really helping customers?
I think the key there is trying to stay ahead of the game, trying to be aware of what is happening and how that could potentially impact not just their customers, but also themselves as well. So it is about being resilient as an insurance broker, but also then ensuring your clients are resilient. As you can imagine, with the cost of living crisis, money's tight for businesses as well as for the customers. So it's ensuring that they're not sacrificing their own insurance coverage as well. And this is what we are finding with some businesses, that they will either have minimum levels of cover or just go without insurance completely. And we can't have that happening. So it is trying to educate the customers to make sure that they've got something, at least something that gives them the cover that they need.
I'm curious to know what that increasing complexity as well looks like for brokers day to day.
It's trying to understand probably where the most significant risks are going to be. We actually have a survey in our manifesto across small and large businesses, and the top three are your cyber risks, your high cost of supplies, and of course the cost of living crisis as well. So everyone seems to be quite aligned with what those risks are. But again, it's a bit of a crystal ball as to how you're going to help that impact, basically.
The complexity of risks is emerging because more and more the risks that business owners are concerned about are actually risks that insurance can't actually cover. So whilst, cyber is a concern, whilst business interruption is a concern, geopolitical is a concern, some of that can be insured, but there's also a lot that can't be. And as a consequence, for brokers to stay relevant and really add value to customers, they've got to think about how they improve the quality of the advice they're giving and the way they're delivering that advice to the customers.
How is the pace shaping customer expectations?
It's actually changing customer expectations at a rapid rate. I mean, the reality is all customers are expecting the businesses they deal with understand and know them better and know them more. They're expecting the ability to transact and trade with businesses in multiple different ways, whether it's digital, whether it's the ability to call or contact on a face-to-face. So I think as an industry, we need to really leverage technology to find ways to deliver those services that Julie was talking about.
Where do the gaps, though, still exist between customer expectations and what the industry can realistically deliver?
I think there's an opportunity for the industry, insurers and brokers alike, to rethink about productivity when we're leveraging technology. At the moment, I do think there's a general slant towards investing in technology to reduce inefficiencies in our businesses. I think at some point in time, we need to really turn that around and point that focus towards improving quality of service to customers. If we can do that, the industry will stay relevant, the industry will thrive. And I think that's the opportunity for all of us and an opportunity for brokers and insurers to work really closely together to bring that to life.
Julie, from a compliance and regulation perspective, what do you think, especially this year, brokers should really be across?
I mean, from a BIBA perspective as well, we really would like to see a financial services bill. There's an awful lot of reforms that the government are looking at, but without the legislation, they're not going to happen. So we need to see that. But brokers need to be thinking about the regulatory priorities, and the FCA have made that very, very clear in their new reports that they've produced as well. So looking at the key areas, thinking about consumer understanding, educating their customers, thinking about the access to insurance, where can we fill those gaps? Simplifying regulation, that's top priority as well. But obviously having the consumer protection in mind at all times. And the simpler things are, the easier it is going to be to look after your customers.
You've both mentioned educating customers. What is the best way to go about that? Phuong?
It's a really tough one, because if you think about insurance, the touch points we have with customers is often during a time where they don't want to deal with us. We at the point where they have to hand over their hard-earned cash for insurance cover that they feel like they might not need. And then the second time we touch with them is during a claim, when they're actually going through difficult circumstances. So I think what we need to do is think about how we can connect with them more regularly throughout the year, and how do we provide that advice however they want that advice, and listening to customers, whether they want it digitally, whether they want detailed advice across certain emerging risks. But the point is giving them options.
Absolutely. And I think from a broker perspective as well, like Phuong was saying, the advice element is the key. Mm-hmm. Customers don't know what they don't know. So without talking to them and understanding their needs, trying to mitigate the risks that they could be facing is a no-starter.
And it's critically important from a regulation perspective, because if you think, all regulation's been designed to try to create better customer outcomes. Now, whilst that intent doesn't always come to reality, and like Julie, we welcome simpler and less regulation that doesn't add value to the customer. But the industry has also got to prove itself in terms of self-regulating itself. And the best way to do that is putting the customer at the forefront of everything we do.
Sticking with regulation, Julie, what are your thoughts on ways to reduce the operational complexity of regulation?
Great question. I already touched on simplifying the rules. That is going to help considerably across the whole of the sector, to be honest with you. Regulatory reporting is still one of our key manifesto aims as well. And the FCA have already started doing a considerable amount to reduce that burden on firms, but there is still more that can be done. And it is about collecting the data that they need, that's relevant to them, where they can see them, where the potential risks and the harm are going to be, rather than having this blanket sort of data collection tool, I guess, really. And they've also done an awful lot to simplify the rules as well. And there's more coming. And again, we completely support that. The Consumer Duty has been with us nearly 3 years now in July, and it's doing a good job. And I think, focusing on the outcomes rather than the prescriptive rules are going to be key.
Phuong, how are you preparing Allianz to meet the challenges of a changing risk landscape through 2026 and beyond?
It's a big question. I mean, in terms of what we can do for our customers and our brokers, we're investing significantly on the technology side of things. We're going through a complete re-platform of our business right now. And that's setting ourselves up to help brokers digitize the way we trade. And it's important to say that when we say digitize, we're not taking the face-to-face and the partnerships and the relationships away. It's actually taking the non-value adding administrative task off the people's hands, so that the experts can have conversations about what really matters. So we're doing a lot of that at the moment, and there are many brokers who are looking to us to help them digitize their business. And we're doing a number of proof of concepts and a number of trials with different brokers. And so far the success has been really, really good, and looking to scale that nationally. Second to that is actually just using our breadth and depth of expertise that we have globally to understand what the emerging risks are on a global scale, and taking that expertise and sharing that with our broker partners in the UK to think about how do we change products, innovate the products, innovate the advice and the information that we can pass on to our customers.
When I was at a technology conference recently, I heard an expression for the first time: trying to boil the ocean. You're trying to do everything at once. And the danger, I suppose, with AI is there's so many things promising so much that it can be difficult to prioritize what's actually going to make the most significant difference to your business. What are you choosing, and how are you choosing to prioritize what you want to go forward with and what you think actually we need to leave this behind?
That's a great question. If I got $1 for every company that's approaching me and saying that their AI is the silver bullet to our business, I'd be really, really rich. I think the thing is, doing it in an old-fashioned corporate way, I don't think is going to be successful, where you put a lot of money into one big program of work to try to change the way you do your business. I think you've got to sit back and understand what are the strategic capabilities that are critical for success going forward. And for us in insurance, it's quite simple. It's underwriting and claims. So we would encourage almost a bottom-up disrupt ourselves, where we try a lot of different AI and technology solutions, focus on those two key strategic capabilities where we think has the biggest opportunity to really support our broker partners.
What questions, therefore, do you think brokers really need to be asking themselves right now so that they can deliver the best outcomes for their customers?
The questions I'll be asking is, am I delivering the quality of advice that my customers are expecting, given the uncertainty and the changes that we're seeing in the market? If the conversations are solely based on product coverages and conversations are solely based on price, I think there's a chance that there's another broker out there talking about what are the risk mitigations that I can support you with? What are the other advice that I can give you to help make your business more resilient through this uncertain times?
Julie?
I think as well, something they need to be asking themselves is, do the customers actually understand what they're buying? Why they're buying it? What does it cover? What doesn't it cover? There's a lot of work going on around the consumer understanding piece as well, and I think we'll see an awful lot more of that over the next few months as well. Again, we talk about simplified policy wordings, summarising the cover.
What can brokers do to improve outcomes? What other ideas are there?
I think they do a great job when they're advising and recommending products, but I think it's also really important for them to test that what their processes, what their services are offering are actually doing what they say on the tin. Again, another big regulatory focus this year as well. So if they find that perhaps consumer outcomes aren't necessarily being delivered in a certain area, then let's make some changes. Then let's test again. And I think that's something that should be a key focus this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually encourage them to speak to their insurance partners on that as well. The consumer outcomes that we need to drive are very similar to the ones that brokers do when we have to do product value assessments all the time.
Absolutely.
And so having that dialogue and sharing that feedback really helps us.
I agree.
Can I ask what your top tips are to reduce operational complexity?
Review your processes. Can you automate? We've been talking about digital a lot. And I think at the moment, again, it is around the efficiencies. Because let's face it, you need the time to serve your customers. So the more automation you can do to reduce that admin burden, I think is going to be key.
Probably two things that we've always found there has been a hurdle for us to automate, offshore, or even leverage AI. And that is, firstly, get your data in a really good shape. It needs to be organized and have one single source of truth. And the second thing is, and Julie mentioned this, have a process map. Actually map out all your processes and ask yourself, do any of these steps or processes are still required? So it's so important for businesses to simplify their processes before they start looking at automation and AI.
Looking ahead to 2030, and I know this is difficult to predict, but what are your market expectations, shall we say?
From a regulatory perspective, I would say less prescriptive rules. I think that's going to be key, more outcomes focused, more consumer understanding, and more about reviewing your processes and demonstrating that you are going to make changes if you need to and that they work.
The one thing I'm certain of is any prediction I make is probably going to be wrong, like any economists out there.
It's fine. We won't hold you to it, though.
Yeah. Look, I think the market's going to continue to be very competitive and very soft throughout 2026, and potentially I'm bullish to think that it might flatten out in 2027. But for the next 3 or 4 years, certainly the pace of change around technology is something we can certainly expect to see. Right now, a lot of that focus is around productivity, but I suspect a lot of the focus in the later years will be more around customer outcomes.
And finally, we started with the BIBA conference. Let's end with the BIBA conference. What do events and conferences like this do for the industry, but also for a company like Allianz?
Look, I think for us, what's really important is staying connected to our broker partners. Now, we've got a really clear strategy to be a simpler business so that, when brokers trade with us, they feel at ease and get delighted with that transaction. But the real litmus test is what the brokers tell me. It's not up to me to decide how we're progressing. And so for me, almost 10,000 delegates that attend. So that's 10,000 people that I can get feedback from.
How important do you think that sort of collaboration and networking will be going forward for the insurance industry?
Vital. Absolutely vital, especially over the next 12 months and the way that the landscape is at the moment as well. There's such a buzz at conference. Last year we just saw so many people networking, so many relationships being built or, continuing to grow as well. So, I think that's key.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that won't change about our industry, despite all this conversation around digital technology and uncertainty, is that it's still fundamentally a people business and not just people business between insurers and brokers, but brokers are our conduit to the end customer. So, having those conversation and dialogue will always be critical to this business. Yeah, look, I encourage all brokers to come by and see the Allianz stand. We're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of new things that we're creating that I think are really important to our broker partners. So swing by and have a chat to us, and happy to share and talk to our brokers about all the cool things we're launching.
Julie, Phuong, thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Insurance Tomorrow, brought to you by Allianz. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. And don't forget, you can also watch our episodes on YouTube and on Spotify. And a reminder that we'd love to hear from you. What are the issues that you're talking about with your colleagues and businesses? Is there a question you'd love us to ask our experts? Do get in touch via the link in the show notes. I'm Georgie Frost. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.